As always, we always start our meetings with a prayer, and I've asked Dr. Ron Walcher to lead us in prayer this time, so if you'll join us, then we'll do the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we love you and we appreciate you, and we ask that you look down on this country, the United States of America, and this state, Oklahoma, and bless us. As we want to thank you, first of all, that we have the right and opportunity and joy of electing our own leaders. That's something that most people haven't had in their lifetime, and we just thank you for that. And as we elect leaders, from the president down to every office that we vote on, Father, give us wisdom in voting, but also, in spite of our lack of wisdom or whatever, give us leaders that believe in you, that have wisdom from above, that make laws that encourage righteousness and punish sin instead of vice versa. And I pray that this country grow in righteousness and obedience to you. And I pray this country grow in freedom, and that we continue to have the freedom and rights that we've had throughout our lifetime. Father, we want to thank you again for the blessing you've put upon this country since it was initiated in 1776 by a bunch of people who sat down and prayed at the Constitutional Convention, and you gave them the greatest political document ever written, and we give you the glory and the praise for that. Once again, we ask that you bless this time. May it be clear what the candidates believe in and want to do, and may you give each of them a blessing for being willing to serve and being willing to take the risk of running for office. Bless each one of them. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Doc. Okay. Charlie, welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
I'm trying to step halfway.
Did we have Glenn?
He's right there in the back.
What?
Do we have the flag?
Right here.
Right here.
Oh, I missed it. Okay. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay, a couple of real quick introductions. Leonora Smithheiser. She is the vice chair down in Noble County. She's extremely active in politics, and she has a petition she'd like to mention to everybody.
If any of you have heard Charles Key lately, he has petition number 840, which helps the grassroots people get their bills heard in the legislature. But I do have stuff for the petition. I understand it. I can't necessarily explain the thoughts on it. I do have the written stuff on it. So if you want to sign it, get with me after we get through here.
Basically, what it does, it takes power from the leadership in the Senate and the House. Right now, if they don't approve a bill, it never gets to the floor for a vote. This bill, if it passes, will circumvent that. I think, if I remember correctly, it gives every legislator 3 bills that they're guaranteed will get, that they introduce, that will get to the floor. So it's a good thing. It would, like I said, it'll take power from the leadership, which has been a big problem, especially in the Senate lately. Okay, and we have one of our Senate candidates, Jaden Terrazas. I've known Jaden since he was 16. He is a rock-solid conservative. He's been that way ever since I met him, and he's a bright guy, and he's running to replace Bill Coleman. Bill Coleman has been in the Senate 8 years, and Jaden has gotten the OK2A endorsement from Don Spencer, and I'm officially announcing today he's got my personal endorsement as well. And I'll be publicizing that this next week, but this is my first announcement of that. I was waiting until we had the Senate forum out of the way last week. And the main reason, there's a number, but the main reason is Bill Coleman voted twice to give illegals driver's licenses, which means they could walk in and register to vote. And one of those years, he was a co-sponsor of the bill. So I'm going to give Jaden a little bit of time just to introduce himself. Take it away, Jaden.
Well, you said more good than I ever could have. For Senate District 10, if you live in Tonkawa or Newkirk or Ponca City, That's pretty much the area on this side of the district. Everyone in Osage County is in District 10 as well. I know 38 goes way south, so some of you all may not be in our district. But like Terry said, endorsed by OK2A, endorsed by the K County GOP, which they have not endorsed in a primary in decades, I believe. And so we got that endorsement. 27 years old, had a very, very successful career with Amazon before this, and then decided that the state needs some attention and it needs some new ideas from real conservatives, and no
Amen.
matter the age or body they come in. And so resigned my position so I could campaign full time. It takes a lot of work to unseat an 8-year incumbent that's backed by 38 PACs and lobbyists and all of the majority funds and everything else. So we're working hard. We've got door knockers going everywhere, and that's what I was doing earlier today. I'm probably do it later today, dodging rain. So I'll be here probably till the end. If not, Terry's got my phone number. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. Talked to 2 people yesterday that called us from a mail piece they got. So those of you that are getting our mail, bear with me. I know it's a lot, but it's less than the 20 that my opponent has sent, and so we don't have that much money. So just bear with me. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming, Jaden. He's definitely the guy to vote for a fight. Yeah. Okay, that's all the introductions, I think. First, and I want to thank Glen Cope and the church for supplying this venue. The second week in a row they've supplied a venue for one of these candidate forums. And there's a jar on the back table. If you've of a mind, if you want to throw a little money in there to offset their utilities costs for running the lights and air conditioning and everything on a day they wouldn't normally be running, so I'd appreciate it. Let's see. Also, want to thank Claude Williams. This is the best informed guy in K County on politics. He videos just about every meeting in K County. He videoed our candidate Senate forum last week, and it's on his YouTube page. There's yellow slips back there. Take a picture of it because there's not many of them.
One left.
Okay, there's one left. Don't take it. Take a picture of it. And if you want to see the Senate hearing or the Senate forum, if you weren't here, you can go on there and view it. And this one will be posted on there in a couple of days. And I want to thank you again, Claude, for everything you do. All right, let's see here. Oh, and just to do a plug, next Tuesday, the 9th, 6 p.m. at Mary's, I've got our Lieutenant Governor candidate, T.W. Shannon. Does everybody know who T.W. Shannon is? Been on TV, he's on Fox a lot. Anyway, he's going to be at Mary's. He's running for Lieutenant Governor. So if you'd like to meet and hear him, that would be the place to do it. And if you come early, you can order a real good supper there at Mary's. Okay, I thought I'd give each of y'all 10 minutes each, up to 10 minutes approximately. We're pretty loose here. But to talk about your background, your goals, if you're elected and so forth. And we'll start at the far end. Madison will be first, then we'll go to Suzanne. This is Brian Hobbs, he's from Newkirk. Suzanne Callahan with an A on the end of her name. She's from Guthrie, and she's worked under the dome for how many years?
I worked over 4.5 years.
Yeah. And then, of course, Madison Boley from Perry, and all three of them have been out working hard. We have there's 6 candidates running for this office. We have 3 of them that didn't think it was important to come to the one and only candidate forum for District 38. So you might remember these names when you go in the polling booth. Jim Neal from Crescent, Michael Norman from Guthrie, and Danielle Dieterding from Enid. I'm going to put this on the back. If it's important to you, take a picture. If they won't show up this is the only official forum that they could have come, met voters, and answered questions. So it was just not important.
Did Enid have one?
Who?
Enid had one.
It was a standard, just standard
It
questions
wasn't a
for
forum.
everybody. It was
This
recorded,
is, yeah,
and they took the recording down. They didn't keep it up.
yeah. This is strictly a forum for this office. So I'll guarantee you one thing. If I was running for this office, everyone in my family would know going in that the campaigning was gonna take precedence over any family event with the exception of possibly a funeral, depending on who died. So, I don't know, it just, we had, the last lady, Danielle Dieterning, had confirmed that she was gonna be here, and then she sent me a text yesterday and canceled, so I'm gonna keep this in mind, and I'd recommend all of you do the same thing. Madison, you got it for about 10 minutes, and then we'll just work down the line. Then we're gonna have all of my meetings, we have live questions. Not gonna write questions down, so we will work it. You raise your hand, I'll call on you. Please get to your question right away. If you wanna make a speech, talk to me afterwards, and maybe we can make arrangements for you to make a speech. But try and get to your question right away. Our Senate last week, we went till 2 o'clock, and there were a lot of questions. I try and make sure at all of my functions that everybody in the audience that has a question gets the time and the opportunity to ask it. So that's how we're gonna do it. Madison, it's all yours, and I'll get out of the way and shut up, which is unusual for me.
That'd be perfect. No, Madison Bole, live west of Perry. I promise I will not take 10 minutes whatsoever, but born and raised there, grew up there, graduated high school in 06 in Perry, graduated Oklahoma State in 2010, met my wife, Jordan, and we have our 3 beautiful children here with us today. Also, we live west of Perry, farm and ranch, 5th generation farmer. You know, for me, it's going back to the common sense approaches. We don't need unnecessary laws or unnecessary regulations upon things. We need to continue to just have a common sense handshake approach to things. When I talk to people, my handshake is my contract to you. I don't like making promises I can't keep, so I will not sit here and tell you I can do X, Y, Z or everything at the Capitol, because when you go, it does change, and you're one of 100 people that vote. Then you got to go through a Senate, then you got to go through a governor's race, or a governor also to sign some of those bills. But the things I would like to go to the Capitol and work on are better roads and better education system. The 2 things that are a founding thing for our state. We have to have good infrastructure within our roads. We've got to be able to move goods back and forth, county to county, and across Oklahoma, even across our great nation. And then our better education. Our employers continue to tell us, hey, we're not coming because of your education standards in Oklahoma. We don't feel like our execs or whoever would come with us because their kids, they want a better education than what Oklahoma can provide. They've heard it. The state chamber has run the surveys on all their businesses. It's becoming a real issue. My opportunity for the education side is, let's go back to the school boards. Make sure the door doesn't slam, but you're good. But no, we got to go back to those local school board elections. Tonkawa knows what Tonkawa needs. It's going to be different than Crescent or possibly Medford, Oklahoma. Definitely going to be different than Enid, Oklahoma or Guthrie. Those are larger towns. So we've got to continue to get power back to our local school boards and power back to our teachers. I want to be able to get the disciplinary back to the teachers. There is a line between abuse and disciplinary action, but we have to be able to stand in front and support our teachers and support our superintendents that allow the disciplinary actions to happen in our school system. I'm not saying we need to abuse our kids. Don't take that for tuition there. But what we need to do is get students back in the classroom and allow them to stop disrupting our classrooms there. Then on the infrastructure side, you know, Tonkawa, you guys, if everybody here in Tonkawa, you guys all know what happened to your water system. You're 10 days without water. We don't need to repeat that ever again. We're going to continue to have those problems in our state. A lot of these water treatment plants have been running on borrowed time for the past 10 to 20 years. So we've got to get back to a plan. When it does happen, we can get back to emergency services at least to get water into these communities and provide them emergency-based water there. And then we got to fix the root of the problem. Get to fixing our water infrastructures, our water lines, and our water treatment plants. I've met with the city of Blackwell a couple of times. A lot of them will tell you it's not necessarily the water treatment plant, it's the water lines that are so old that are causing some of the issues there with their water testing problems. So those are the 2 things that I find truly important that we need to focus on for me. Agriculture is obviously near and dear to my heart, but I will continue to protect ag, continue to protect private property rights for us also. But Again, Madison Bole, and we'll look forward to your questions.
Want me to just start in?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a different format than usual.
Oh,
Okay.
want me to expect another introduction? I can do that if you prefer.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
My name is Suzanne Callahan, and I live in Guthrie. I have kind of an extensive background, 30 years of experience in private industry. My husband and I were both born in Ohio, and we moved to Oklahoma in 1995. When I was a child, my dad moved me around every 2 years. He was a small town pastor. And when I was little, we went to West Virginia, North Carolina, and then finally to Kentucky. And I graduated from high school in a little town called Hazard. And you probably are familiar with that because of the program Dukes of Hazzard. And it was named after that town. And it is exactly kind of what you saw in the program. It was a very interesting town. So, but I got married at 18. And my dad had a bargain with my husband, who was a number of years older than I was, that I got to go to college because I was at the top of my class. And he wanted me to be able to go and not give that up. We moved to Columbus, Ohio, and my husband was working for the railroad. I got an associate in computer science. That's all you could get at that time, just some programming. And then I went on to get a bachelor's in accounting from Marshall University in West Virginia, and a master's in business administration and a CPA license in Florida when we went there for my husband's work. So a lot of traveling around, and learned a lot about getting along with different kinds of people and different perspectives. And my dad's compassion for people was just incredible. I did 2 decades in oil and gas in Oklahoma. Loved it. Loved oil and gas. It's a challenging industry. I love challenges. And in 2018, I left oil and gas because of my dad. They were doing another layoff. Every time they did a layoff, I got more work. And I couldn't do more work because I was dealing with ER visits and setting up doctor's appointments, taking to appointments, laundry, all kinds of things, just taking care of my dad. And I love to work, though. I don't stay home real well. I had a friend who wanted to run for State House, and I became his campaign manager, and he won in 2020. And after he won, he asked me to go to the State House with him. And I agreed to do that, but that would work with my dad. And so over 4.5 years at the State House, I did a lot of work on drafting legislation, a lot of it on election bills, really like election data and doing a lot of research. I lost my dad in December of 2024. He was 2 weeks shy of being 90. And so for all of those of you who have, dealt with caretaking, you kind of know what all this is like. And you have decisions to make that you don't want to make. And he had a lot of medical issues in ICU, and it was right after Christmas, and I had to make the call to pull the plug because he was just so miserable, and there was no path to recovery. So I lost him in December of 24. I stayed on at the Capitol, and I'd gone to the Capitol because of my dad, but I had 2 legislators dependent on me, and you don't bail on them at the last minute and go do something else. So I was at the Capitol in spring of 2025 and kept working, and I had a number of people at the Capitol and outside of the Capitol who told me that I really needed to run because of the extensive knowledge that I had of the processes, because I'd been involved for decades. I knew a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems. And so I announced in August of 2025. Some of the things that I noticed at the Capitol while I was there is that we have agencies that need to do a lot better job managing their funds. You have $20 million that was misplaced at mental health, over $700 million that was mismanaged at DHS. Some of those funds spent on remodeling bathrooms, kitchens, and paying off a Cadillac, obviously all inappropriate. And we do need to work on infrastructure and other things in the district, but we don't want to raise taxes. We're going to have to deal with the fraud, the waste, and the abuse, and make sure our money's being spent right. And that's a big focus of what I've talked about is accountability. I don't like seeing people treated differently. And I'm repeatedly seeing instances where people do something, and because they have connections to somebody, the governor, somebody else, that they get off with a lighter sentence and not as much penalty as the rest of us. And we're just as valuable as those people are. And had a big discussion with somebody this last week on this issue. Was at that house for an hour, and it's just heartbreaking, some of the stuff that goes on. But I'd like to see some more support for our seniors. I've run into a number of seniors that are having difficulties with property taxes. Property taxes are increasing faster than their fixed income and pensions. And this does not mean I want to take money away from schools. I think we can balance that out. Like I said, there's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. I have 3 schools telling me that there's been funds stolen from employees, and those employees were not charged. I have a problem with that, and I want to know why that happened. So my husband is a retired special education teacher. He retired in 2018. And we have a daughter who lives in upstate New York and is a supervisor at a utilities company. But education, you can tell from my husband, very near and dear. And he went back and did a lot of subbing. He doesn't like to stay home either, I can tell you that right now. So he went back and substituted, and I know one story in particular really grabbed my attention when he came home. He said, there's one child bullying another child, and the principal won't do anything about it. And I told that principal that I wouldn't come back. I had a superintendent tell me not too long ago that he had a really good teacher leave, not because of pay, but because of the environment in the classroom, that you almost need some kind of armor on, for the kicking, the punching, and all these kinds of things. And there's 2 different things going on there. You have to have principals that support the teachers. Principals are hired by the superintendents. Superintendents are hired by the school boards. We need more focus on those school board elections. I'd like to see them move to a different time of year in order to ensure that more people participate in those elections. And I've also been encouraging people at the door to step up and run for school board, because they talk about issues, and it's like, we need your help. If you have good ideas on things that need to be done differently, a lot of those are local decisions. We can't do all that at the legislature for you. We need your help to do that. If you have any questions, and I'm sure we'll get more, feel free to contact me or talk to me afterwards.
Well, just to dovetail onto what she was talking about with education, I agree with most of what you just said, not all. There are significant problems, and people do need to get involved at the grassroots level. My name's Brian Hobbs. I'm born and raised in Kay County, Newkirk. Other than my time in the service, I've pretty much been around this area. Lived in Tonkawa briefly back some years ago. Enjoyed it, but my folks and my wife's folks are still around and still in Newkirk. So, my wife and I, we could have left possibly for opportunities, but family was more important to us. Our children get to be raised around all of their grandparents, and it's really a blessing. All politics aside, it was probably the best decision my wife and I have made. I'm a former Army Air Cavalry veteran. I served in South Carolina, Virginia, Colorado. However, I got out right before 9/11 happened. I attempted to rejoin, but at that point they told me I had too many children, believe it or not. Weird side note there. I've been endorsed by Kay County GOP just last week. They came out and endorsed me. I've been endorsed by General Michael Flynn, if anybody's familiar with who that is. Roger Stone, who was Donald Trump's campaign manager, has endorsed me as well. Former State Party Chairman John Bennett, former First Sergeant Marine Corps, has endorsed me as well. But not because of what I'm promising to do, but what I've done. Like Suzanne, I've spent a lot of time at the Capitol, and I know what the problems are, and I've also worked on legislation. I've helped on, some Second Amendment legislation, some pro-life legislation, and different things that were kind of near and dear to my heart, like illegal immigration legislation. And the problem, guys, and I think Suzanne would agree, most of these good ideas and good bills were killed by Republicans in committee. And we've got a problem, and we've got a problem in our own party. Because people say one thing when they're running for election, and then they do another thing once they get into the legislature. And it's, it's got to stop. And, most people who are already familiar with me probably know that I don't mind a good fight. So, and I know that's what it's going to be when I go up there, because I'm not going to lay down for the machine. And I've said in different events and forums, I've been around enough to know, and I think Suzanne, you have as well, that if you're not prepared intellectually for what you're walking into, that machine up there is going to chew you up. Because the lobbyists come around, the special interest groups, oh, you're so wonderful. And we call it the bubble at 23rd and Lincoln. And people spend so much time up there, and I think it's the same way in D.C. Once you get up there, then people forget who they're actually representing and who they're supposed to be listening to. And then they actually start buying into the lie that the lobbyists tell them that this is what's important to people. We've polled this, we've polled that. Well, you can make a poll say just about whatever you want it to say by the way you frame the question. And it's across the board. And so, anyway, that's a little bit about me. I don't want to ramble on. I'd rather get to questions. If people have particular questions about policy, I just wanted to preface that. I've been married for 23 years. Trying to think of many other points that people might care about. I'm a Christian. That will carry my decision making. If elected, I've got a protocol that I have kind of developed over the years, and that is it biblical? Is it constitutional? Do we need it? And can we afford it? And somebody actually pointed out a fifth one that I had never used before, and that is, does it make the government smaller? And so that's kind of the criteria, if elected, that I will operate with, and I think it's a good one. And so I'll shut up and take questions if people have some.
Okay. It is a bubble down there.
It is.
That's a good description. Okay. Bill first, then be Charlie.
Thank you, Terry. This is, you are visiting what amounts to a gun club, OK2A. And so perhaps the first question there. How do you decide, all three of you jump on it, how do you decide who can carry a gun, openly or not, and when we take the guns away from them, and should we have gun safety training in our schools?
Before we get to the answers, this is not an OK2A event. So that's fine, your question.
Clarifying that.
No, your question's fine, but I want to make sure I understand it's a group called Involved and Informed Tonkawa Citizens. So, but anyway, yeah, but it's still a valid question, so who wants to kick it off?
You can start.
I'm fine by me. We can go into reverse order now if we want. Well, I mean, first I'd like to take a moment to recognize some 84 years ago, the charge of the beaches of Normandy.
Amen. Today's the day.
And praise God for those brave men and women who put it on the line so that we wouldn't have our constitutional rights stripped away from us. So I'm going to try to remember and cover your question best I can here, and that is when the Second Amendment is unalienable. It shouldn't be stripped, in my opinion, for any reason. Because you have to go back to why the Second Amendment was written. It wasn't written for hunting. Everybody was a hunter when this was written. I mean, that was part of survival for the lion's share of people. And people get off in the weeds on stuff like that. And it's, and when I was younger, I even probably took the bait. And then it wasn't until I joined the service, got older, that I realized that, well, this is foundational to everything else in our Constitution because it's the means by which we defend it. I mean, there are some arguments, I guess, to be made for felons to have their rights removed if you're an armed robber, if you've committed murder. Then I don't know that the Constitution backs that. It doesn't distinctly say that in the Constitution, but that's kind of what society has accepted. But what needs to be discussed, in my opinion, when it comes to the Second Amendment is, well, okay, if you've done something wrong, especially if you're young, and you made a mistake, when does your Second Amendment get reconstituted to you? because right now it's basically indefinite. And so, I mean, there have to be some, in my opinion, some measures to reconstitute those rights to people that are guaranteed in the Constitution. Nobody wants to have that conversation, because then you know, of the things that I'm just said, people will look at you and say, well, you support felons, you know, but people make mistakes in life. And I've got a friend who, I can't remember what he was in trouble for, but it was some 20 years ago. I mean, he's closer to my age, and I mean, should he not be able to defend his family now? You know?
Let's let
Oh, sorry.
that answer.
Okay, sorry. I'm pretty passionate about the Second Amendment, sorry.
Okay, so I'll start out with, I have an A, OK2A rating, an AQ with NRA, and so the next thing I would say is that you have a right to defend yourself, and I want you to keep in mind what happened in Venezuela years ago. Venezuela, the people had the right to guns, and then that was taken away from them. And the next thing that happened couldn't have happened without the guns being gone, all right? So then you have the socialists/communists take over there, and when the people try to fight back, they can't. And I have a friend whose mother is from Venezuela, and the stories that come back are horrendous, okay? So there's a truck goes by and the people are hungry. It's a government truck, it has food on it. The food falls off, all right? And a person picks it up because they're hungry off of a government truck. It fell off, they get shot. There were people who were trying to counter what was going on in Venezuela, and they had a home meeting. And they tried to keep it undercover, but somebody found out, and the officials came to the house and shot them. So you have to have the ability to defend yourself. It's not just for hunting, it's protection against those who would try to take over the country and force you into submission. And when you look at the people with the gun control, and all of us have gotten gun control and gun sense surveys in our emails, and I think all of us has just put them in file 13 or something. It's kind of like, I don't think so, so we'll just pass on that. But for some reason they think you're going to take the guns away and it's going to solve it. It's not going to solve it. The bad people will always figure out how to get the guns. You're taking the guns away from the people who are trying to defend themselves. That's what you're doing. So you can't have people in prison, and as far as the length of time when people get out, there was a bill at the Capitol this session. Did it go all the way through? That if it had been a long time since you had that nonviolent offense?
This is the third year, I think, that we've tried to get that forgiveness bill through.
Yeah.
It didn't.
And it's
Thanks to the Senate
nonviolent
leadership, I might add.
Yeah, so that's something that they've tried to get through, that somebody that had a nonviolent offense, and it's been a lot of years since it happened.
Yeah, 5
they
years
could-
of
They
claim.
could get their rights back. But that's basically my opinion on that and my stance on that. But I will defend your Second Amendment rights. Those are important, and that prevents tyranny. And that's really what it was about. It wasn't about hunting. It wasn't ever about hunting.
Madison, it's your
Try not to make too much noise there. Yeah, pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, 100%. Got to be able to protect life. Got to be able to protect your family and your home. I can tell you my 11-year-old son, we love to go hunt. He shot his first deer this year. He's really big into archery now. So absolutely, pro-gun, pro-life. But again, we got to go back to a common sense thinking on some of this stuff. Does a convicted felon that held a gun to a woman's head while he raped her need a gun ever in his life? Probably not. But he deserves to be in jail for a long time too. So common sense legislation, common sense thinking has got to prevail some of this. And I understand we can't get it all written down in a word and written into our Constitution exactly how it should be laid out for years to come, 50, 100, 250 years ago. The men that wrote our Constitution probably didn't think we'd be having this conversation on a lot of this stuff. So I am very pro-gun on this, but I do think common sense thinking and common sense beliefs need to be taken into account on that also.
Thank you, Madison. And as you answer questions, let's try and keep it to maybe a minute, minute and a half. Okay?
Got it.
So, Charlie, you're up, brother.
The Tonkawa tribe of Oklahoma has worked very closely with the governments and all. What should the legislature and the government of Oklahoma, the new governor coming in, what should their posture be toward the tribes and their casinos and their outreach to medical things. How should Oklahoma's new government posture be towards with the tribe?
First, who's anyone else?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go reverse order each time. So
Okay.
Madison, go
Okay,
ahead.
we can go this way.
Gotcha. Number one, the tribes are an important piece of Oklahoma. They're part of our heritage. They're part of what Oklahoma became a state with. We've got to get a better relationship there. First and foremost, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an expert on how all the money flows to and from some of those tribes, but they are a sovereign nation declared by our federal government there. But as a state, we have to be able to reach our hand across the aisle to them and shake their hand and look at them in the eye and not lie to them and tell them, hey, let's work together. It needs to be a good deal for the state. It needs to be a good deal for the tribes. I understand that. Obviously, our government that we have right now is not even on talking terms within our tribes. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of resources that as a state we can utilize and work with. We've got to be able to sit there and work with them. On the medical side, absolutely. They've got to have Drive Up Health Clinic right here in Tonkawa. The hub, I can tell you our family visits probably once a month. It's very reasonably economically for us as a family of 5 to go and eat and be able to have a good afternoon. So there's no reason why as a state we shouldn't be able to work with the tribes there, all across the state, not just here in Tonkawa.
Okay, so what I would say on this is we need to honor our agreements and we need to work well with people. So, and I've seen this on both sides, not only of the aisle, but at different ends of the Republican Party, is people don't want to work with each other to get something done. And that's not helpful. And it's also not helpful with the tribes. So our current governor, for whatever reason, has decided that, he wants a change in the agreement, and you try to force it on somebody. That doesn't work when you're working with people. So you need to honor your agreement. If you want some change in the agreement, then that's a negotiation process. It's not a, try to force it on somebody process. And you come up with something that's agreeable to both sides. I have been in some of the tribal areas door knocking. It's very interesting and also very sad to me because there's not many Republicans in some of those areas. And the ones I run into tell me that, please don't tell anybody that I'm a Republican. And it's like, okay, why is this such a problem? But they're kind of whispering that to me. Don't tell anybody. One lady told me that somebody had found out she was a Republican, and she really didn't look Indian. One parent was Indian and one parent was not. They won't let her play bingo with them. They won't talk to her. And I'm kind of like, this is sad. How can we do something to try to bring people together and make them see that we're all valuable? It doesn't matter what color you are, if you're Indian or half Indian or something like that. But that shouldn't matter, Okay?
Brian, you're up.
Well, I actually am Indian, and I've dealt, as a mayor, I dealt with dealing with the tribes, and the tribes have a lot to offer. We had interrelational things, because we have communal things, water, sewer, that we share, and probably Tonkawa is probably in the same situation as Newkirk. So there is a lot to offer, and they get a lot of federal funds. They pave roads around and things that we all benefit from. So it's the statement she made, it needs to be fair to both parties, or to both entities, should I say, and we need to work to strive to those ends. Because the tribes do invest a lot in infrastructure, and I'm a big infrastructure guy because many of our old towns are in the same boat as far as decayed pipes and old water treatment facilities and stuff, and I think, I would like to focus on some infrastructure things if elected to the State House.
Very good. Ron Walter, you're up.
I think the worst political problem in Kay County is the length of time it takes to get a case tried. It's a direct violation of the Sixth Amendment, and there is a state law now. It's supposed to be 9 months if you're in prison, 18 if you're not, even if you get out on bond. It's ridiculous. 4 years for something that could be decided in 5 minutes. Is there any way from the legislature point that could be changed? You're not going to be familiar with it in Guthrie. Maybe it's not that bad in Guthrie. I'm not. Doesn't Perry have her cases tried in
Yes.
church?
Yeah.
It's terrible. Do you have any idea how you might fix that? Looks like an attempt was made in 2025 to fix it, but it hadn't been fixed.
Well, I mean, you just have to run something that forces them to expedite cases. But, you know, I think one of the things you're going to run into, and this is just being honest, is you have X amount of funding for your county. Your DA's office has X amount of funding. And so, and with case overloads, as society continues to degrade, I mean, which we're watching, is they're going to get more and more caseload. So we'll probably have to divert more money, in my opinion, if that's something that we want to focus on, that we would need to divert more money to that, to hire more staff so that you can get more prosecutions, et cetera, et cetera. That would be my guess. It's not something I've deep dived into, in fairness. That's just my initial thought on it. Susan,
Yep. My initial thought on it is probably a caseload issue and limited staff, and then you have the funding that goes with that staff. But I'm the same as Brian. I haven't done any research into this particular issue, and most of the things that I've heard from people on law enforcement and juries and those kind of issues is that they didn't think the outcome was fair, and there were some other issues in that regard. It really about the timing. So,
Because I mentioned that it's 4 to 5 years on a case that could be decided in 5 minutes.
they should move those faster, and maybe there's something that needs to be done about the priority of those cases. If it can be decided in 5 minutes, you need to bump the short ones up so that you can get those off your list. But I haven't looked into that issue, in all fairness, to the attorneys and everything involved.
Not a part of the judicial system, not a lawyer, one bit there, so really walking out on a limb that I don't know of. Probably a staff shortage. I know the clerks are extremely busy. I know the judge there in Perry, he is at the courthouse every day, Monday through Friday, so I don't really understand the issue there 100% of why. Probably a little bit of backdoor lawyering, if I'd probably be truth, but we got a probably better question for the DAs on that one.
No question. Glenn, Terry, you'll be next.
I was wondering, excuse me, how you felt about the current state question that we're voting on about raising our income, or the minimum wage. One of the things I have a problem with is that in Oklahoma, it's so easy to raise state questions. And then it becomes part of our Constitution. And our Constitution is already unwieldy. I would prefer, personally, that this be a question for the legislature, not to write it into our Constitution. But my question is, what are your pros and cons on this state question?
All cons. And really, there's 3 questions built into the one question there, Glenn, is the minimum wage, which I'm okay with. Hey, if we need to have the discussion on raising minimum wage, I'm okay with discussing that through the legislator on raising that. And that's why the state questions become around, is the legislator never would take it up. So we've got to go back to, again, common sense. Let's sit down and talk about raising our minimum wage. Then the other 2 that are in that state question is really why it's got to be 100% vote no. We take all exemptions away. For me personally, the agriculture exemption is the biggest one, that you have to pay overtime, and you can't have, there's no ag exemptions. You take all those away. And then also how it's connected to the CPI index on the federal level. It is an indefinite going up no matter what. It's 100% a vote no, because you have 3 issues based within the one question.
I basically agree with that. So you've got something tied to a national index that includes California and New York. Just think about that. Anything tied to California and New York, and they have higher costs in general. And I've talked to a number of the farmers. Some of them that I've run into actually didn't even really know about 832. Depends on where you're at and how tied you are into Farm Bureau communications, I think. But having the exemption from farms taken away, and it also impacts, other operations as well. One person was talking about, well, what if you had a pool with seasonal labor, all kinds of seasonal labor that maybe you work a lot of hours per day. This is going to create problems for them, and then it causes problems for their arrangements with those seasonal workers as well. So totally against it, and been advising people that we need to vote no on that. And I think your other repercussion of this is it's going to hurt your kids.
Yep.
My child went to work at 16 at McAllister's for 2 years. One of the best things ever. I could have told her what she would have learned there, but it was better that she experience it for herself. So she'd come home and she'd say, so-and-so got fired because they didn't show up for 3 days and they didn't call. That's right. And then so-and-so got fired because they couldn't get along with the customers. And that's a customer service-based, store. That's right, that's what happens. So those are lessons she never forgot. It's best learned personally, not mom and dad telling you that's what happens.
Well, I'm adamantly against the state question for numerous reasons. One being it'll kill small business. I mean, and agriculture would be included in that. That's number one just off the board. But I do deviate from my two counterparts a little bit on this, and that is I don't believe that it should have ever been instituted to begin with, because labor is an agreement between two people. If I want to hire Terry and Terry's okay with what I'm paying him, the government shouldn't be involved in that contract. It's just wrong in principle to me. And anyway, so I'm going to oppose any of it in that regard, because it's more stuff the government was never intended to be involved in, and as contractual labor. But
Since everybody here knows I can't keep my mouth shut, I'm going to throw in one more aspect of it. It is in perpetuity.
It is.
It will last forever. And in 10 or 15 years, our minimum wage here could be $30 an hour. That will keep any new businesses from moving in. It will get any business that can afford to move out of state, and those that can't afford to move will quit business. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. It's a left-wing plot to destroy Oklahoma's economy, pure and simple. Now, we'll get back to the candidates now. I'll shut up for a little while. Terry, and then Jay, you'll be next. Terry, you're on.
Like data centers, and I think, was it the aluminum smelter in Inola, and all that, you're going to put a lot of load on the electrical grid. How are you going to control that so all of our grids don't crap up and go gray one of these days?
Who wants to start with that one?
Move with reverse order.
well, we when I was spending a lot of time at the Capitol, we actually ran a bill to try to harden our electric infrastructure. Of course, again, like I said, it was killed in committee by Republicans. Short of that, I mean, passing some legislature, we're going to have to invest some money in the infrastructure. Directly to your question about data centers, I'm not a fan. I don't think there's enough information at this point to determine what the load on the electric grid is going to be, what the load on our water aquifer is going to be, what are the groundwater, or the surface water. Is there contaminants? I think I know that we're in basically an arms race to put these data centers in, which I don't know how deep. I mean, I'll get into the depth of it later. I don't know if I don't want to burn up everybody's time here, but I've got some other information that kind of coincides with this situation. I don't want to cheat.
Hopefully they'll be able to hang around if you've got individual talks.
There's a reason all these data centers are popping up, but I don't want to. I can go into that, and I don't want to.
Yeah, that's a big conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree that it's an unknown about your impact on the infrastructure. There was a bill by Senator Sacchieri that was proposed to do a moratorium. It wasn't a permanent moratorium, but a moratorium to do a study on the impact before you move forward. That bill was not heard. So, you don't have that going on. But I won't vote for anything for your backyard that I wouldn't want on my backyard. So I'm not looking for these to be near homes and farms, because I don't think we have enough information on the impact of that right now. But I'm not gonna say they can't be in some industrial complex somewhere, because we already have 5 in Oklahoma. So I'd be lying if I told you that we weren't gonna have any in Oklahoma. And there's a number that are proposed, but none that I've seen on the map for House District 38. But definitely an issue. I wouldn't want one outside my back window, and I'm sure you don't either. And I've heard this repeatedly from people. Be aware that we have something else going on, though, with this particular issue. There was a bill in 2025 that was passed, Senate Bill 998, that allowed utilities to charge you for construction work in process before you ever benefit from a facility that they're building. That means you can get your rate raised, okay? And you're paying for that. And by the time that that facility is ready for use, you may not even live there anymore, and you've already paid for it. This particular bill is now being challenged by the AARP and another organization, because any kind of increases like that in utilities especially hurt seniors who are on fixed incomes. They can't afford those increases. So I'm opposed to that particular bill, and some of this is very interesting because the very people who talk about a bill that was ratepayer protection, they're the same people who voted for this bill for construction work in process that allows utilities to charge you for things right now.
Okay, Madison?
I'm going to stand on private property rights there. Today it's data centers. I mean, next year might be cattle, might be cell phone towers, might be water towers next. So it's not the conversation of AI data centers for me. It's the private property rights. If you want to build a data center in your backyard, I'm not going to stop you. But if you need electricity or if you need water, that's where we can be able to work with as a state. We are not going to, I will not allow a data center, a wind farm, a solar farm, a water tower, whatever you want it to be, to get built and then someone else put that bill as somebody that's on the water district already. There's no reason for them to pay for more water to be successful from. It's private property rights is where we have to look at more importantly. It's AI data center this year, it's going to be something else in 10 years. Private property rights is one of the hardest fast laws in the state of Oklahoma. It's written into our Constitution. I'm not going to stop the data centers. If they want to come, that's fine, but they're going to pay the infrastructure cost to be able to utilize that system.
Can I make one other comment?
Sure, short.
Okay. So,
You got off subject on the last question. Keep it short, okay?
okay, so when you're talking about public property rights, okay, yes, you have the right to do something on your own property. But if you abut my property and what you're doing is right in my face and it destroys the value of my property, that's a problem, okay? So we need to take that into consideration
Okay,
too.
that's good. Since she got her,
Sure. Yes. And I would agree with Suzanne. There's a fine line. I'm a big private
Yeah.
property rights guy as well, and I've had to deal with it as mayor with the wind towers and stuff, and there were unintended, I'll be quick, there were unintended consequences with those. Like, for instance, at my parents' house, you sit out there and you hear, woof, woof, woof. I mean, at the right time. So there may be some noise pollution, different pollutions. It's not that I'm against the private property aspect. It's simply that if it's going to contaminate or burden someone else, then it's a problem.
That's right.
So
It's got to be legal.
Jay, you're up.
Yeah, keeping on the subject, could you not, and tell us here that you would support or provide legislation that would require anybody building a data center provides their own electricity, that they have to build some kind of facility to cover their electricity? Could you not legislate that, and would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but yeah, I mean, they can absolutely, if they want to build it, they have to provide their power system or buy it from City of Tonkawa, for instance, but they've got to pay for enough infrastructure to where everybody else in town continues to keep their same rate and their same usage of wattages in their households there. That's where, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Same thing on the water side.
Suzanne?
This same question?
Yeah, his
Yeah.
question.
So we did have a ratepayer bill passed and it got a lot of publicity, but just like we talked a minute ago, it's in conflict with another one that was already passed that does allow them to charge you. And when I'm talking about not in my backyard, I mean literally right on my property line, okay? Not miles away somewhere else, but something that's sitting right there that impacts me. So that's what we're talking about. And we've had a fair amount of that going on. That's something that's sitting right on the property line and it impacts your daily life.
Well, you may have heard, Jay, that Donald Trump had actually advocated for them to build their own power plants
Right.
for these data centers, and I think that's a good
But
idea.
nobody's in the country, nobody's legislated it yet.
Right. I would be
Now, you have
happy,
to
I
have
would be
some
happy to
big
work on
cojones
that.
to do that.
I would be happy to work on that, Jay, because as a micro, or as a macro, as looking from the bigger picture, if they're tied into our systems, it's gonna drive up cost, period. I mean, because it's supply and demand. If you're wanting more juice to power the centers, it's gonna drive up your cost. There's no way around that. So I think it'd be a great idea to legislate something along with what President Trump wanted to give them their own power.
Bill, again. Yes, sir, thank you. You guys are talking about property rights and things like this. This is a common law state. All the states are common law in their constitutions, except Louisiana. But the common law includes the law of nuisance. So back to education. Why shouldn't all of our students have a good civics education and halfway become lawyers and know the law?
Brian at first.
You're speaking my language now. I think there's been a great egregious failure by our education system to, and I've said this because I walked out of high school not really understanding how to be involved and function in my government. And that is a giant red flag. And one can only assume that that was not accidental. So I think there should be a heavier focus on how to function in our government. Does that answer your question? Or was there another
Getting
question?
started. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, to make sure I'm answering the question, I'll get off in the weeds.
I think that we need better civics education. I do not support Action Civics. There's a group in Oklahoma that's Action Civics-based Generation Citizen. And basically what they're teaching kids is how to be protesters, and the teacher will tell them to advocate for certain types of legislation. That is inappropriate. When I had civics education in high school, I did have a football coach teach it, but he was a good civics teacher. He was really good. And this was a long time ago. And the one thing I remember that he said, which is what I'm referring to previously, is that your rights end where the next person's rights begin. So yes, I have freedom to do what I want, but when you're doing something right in front of my face and I can't escape from it, there's a problem there too. I need to respect my neighbor.
Madison?
You go back to the education standard, really is what you're asking for there is, absolutely, why can't we teach our government classes and how to be active within the government and have a common law basis? And you get on a little sidetrack there, kind of becoming a lawyer within that, but there is a college to become a pre-lawyer, a pre-law basis on that one. But to have a common law and a common base knowledge of our government, absolutely. I was extremely fortunate. I had a wonderful social studies and a government teacher all through high school. I never knew her party affiliation until I was probably 25 to 27 years old. I had no idea, Republican or Democrat, on what she taught and how she taught. I was extremely fortunate there. I can tell you knocking doors, quick story. I asked a teacher, she was retired, 5 years retired, and I said, can I put a sign in your yard? She said, I don't want to be rude to you because I do like you, but I don't ever want someone to know my political beliefs. I said, but you're retired. She goes, it doesn't matter. I want my students to know what I taught them is to be educated and informed as a student rather than anything else.
Okay. Doc again?
You talked around it a little bit. Oklahoma is the 45th in the nation at best in education results. Is it because we're stupid? Or do you have an answer for that? Last time, the only thing they said was the Mississippi miracle. Mississippi is currently 49. We tried to join them. Do you have an idea how to improve it? Or maybe just leave it 45th. Maybe that's good enough for us.
Absolutely not, no. I mean, 45th is not right for Oklahoma. We have to do better. We have to get our education system back up to the top half. I mean, yeah, we all want to be number one, shoot amongst the stars, or shoot for the moon, lands amongst the stars with it. We've got to get a plan and start. We started that plan back in 2014, and they got political policies got in the way, and they voted it out because of it. We have a better plan now. They started the common reading law this year. I do think it's going to help. I'm really big on let's state a plan and let's go to the plan for at least 2 to 3 years. There's nothing wrong with raising your hand and say, hey, we made a mistake, we got to change. But let's quit changing it every year. Let's quit changing constantly, because the teachers in the classrooms are hitting a moving target then. They need some sort of a consistency of where we're moving towards. To answer your question, 45th is unacceptable. What is acceptable? I would sure like to be in the top third, personally, as a state. I would like to send my 3 kids to an education system for that.
Susan?
So this is a question I've had some very interesting conversations with teachers at doors. You have the discipline issue. You can't teach if there's not discipline in the classroom. We've talked about that already. The other thing that I've heard from teachers, and these are older teachers, is that our standards aren't high enough. That you get what you expect, and our students are capable of more than what we're expecting of them. There are things that are going on right now that, things that I probably learned in 6th grade that now they're not learning till 8th or 9th grade. We don't expect enough of kids. And there's a variety in the teachers, okay? Some of them are going through teacher education programs that are too focused on politics. And we need to be focused on academics. Reading, writing, arithmetic, real history. We don't need to be adding a whole bunch of other stuff that deal with social issues. That's mom and dad's job. That's not the school's job. And I know there are families that struggle. And so, you have to take that into account. But a lot of that too is in the purview of churches, and that they can really help those families who are struggling and make things better, and provide the mentoring programs so that students that can see better. But I would form a coalition with some of these people I've talked to and others for more information on some of the things you could do. This is in general something I want to do on key issues, to get together people in the district and get more of their ideas on things we can do.
Right.
Well, Suzanne just took my main point. That is reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then as well as history. I mean, we've gotten away from the fundamentals in education. Obviously there's a gap here. My kids have been homeschooled. They've been a public school. They've been charter schooled, because every kid is not the same. And for instance, one of my older boys, he's now a welder and has given me 5 grandchildren, and he's been very successful. And when he was in school, I remember coming home and there was a bottle of pills on the counter, and it was Adderall. Well, the school thought he was too hyperactive, and I took those and I dumped them in the toilet, and I said, he's a young boy, he's doing what young boys do. The school system's and so I said, that's not gonna happen, we're not drugging my son. And like I said, wonderful life here. We need to refocus a lot on I think we need to have shop back in school. We need to, it was before my time, but there used to be rivalry and different things. In Kildare, they have archery and different things. I think the focus has gotten off of the basics of education in schools, and I mean, I would like to look further into that, exactly what is stalling some of these schools out versus others. But I would like to say, while I would spend a lot of time at the Capitol, I got some information that said, if you cut out Tulsa and Oklahoma City school districts, we're like 12th in the nation.
It's better if you,
And some of the school districts in Oklahoma City are 60% plus non-English speaking. Of course, it's going to affect our scores. So, anyway.
Jay, you're up.
I'm not sure that this question impacts you all, and it's some help. looking for, you know, your input because you're close to the political environment in Oklahoma. We've been getting 3 to 4 or 5 four-color slick stuff, some of them from you all, some of them
Not
from
me.
others, but almost every one of them is funded by a PAC. We can't find out who's in that PAC. Can you help us understand, there's like two main PACs driving all of that mailing. Who, give us the PAC name or number so that we can identify who's really sending this stuff.
Madison, you're up.
Yeah, I'm the first one on that one. Yeah, I've sent you mailers, 100%. You've seen them in the mail. Hopefully they look really nice for you. But the elections are based on name ID. That's why mailers go out. That's why Facebook's happened there. Your question about the PACs. OklahomaGuardian.com is where a lot of that information is housed. That's the state's IE program. All lobbyists, all Oklahoman candidates have to be registered through there. You can get on there and find those PACs, and you can find, I believe, donors to those PACs. I don't know who, I've never really dug deep into a PAC to know if it is you find the head of the PAC on that one, absolutely. So I can't answer your question 100% there. But no, you're right. Oklahoma election law, federal law, the money that goes into elections, I'll be honest, never been a politician, had no idea what goes in to all the mailers, goes into the TV ads there. I'm learning a lot, getting a better idea of it, but I can't tell you how to find the PAC's name or where it all comes from. You can find some of the donors, though, that go into those PACs.
What website is that again, Madison?
Oklahoma Guardian.
Oklahoma Guardian, yeah.
Guardian.
Is it .org or .com?
If you just type
You just type in
Guardian in the
Oklahoma
browser,
Guardian, yeah.
if you type that in the browser, you'll see it.
Yeah,
That's
Ethics Commission.
Oklahoma Ethics
Yeah.
Commission. You can find it through
You
all
can
that.
go in and search by name, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Suzanne, you're next.
Good question, though. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you
So-
backed by a PAC?
I am endorsed by Oklahoma Farm Bureau and AFR, but no, I don't have a PAC or.
Not you individually. Has a PAC paid for your mailers?
No, all my mailers have come from Friends of Madison Bowling. I was trying to think of the county. Yeah, Friends of Madison Bowling.
Okay, that's fine, just a question.
But the PACs can contribute to the campaigns.
Yes.
So indirectly, they're still paying for the mailers.
Just like you can donate
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. But you can look those up as well. If you go to Guardian, and then you can look under candidate and contributions, you can see all the contributions. The PACs typically will have PAC listed in the contributor name, but that's not all the PAC, the lobby money that's really there. There are some of the individual lobbyists that contribute. You actually have to click into the contribution to see that they're associated with CSS Partners and they work with the lobbyist at the Capitol. So it's, in this particular race, there's not a ton of lobby money going on. There is some, and I won't get into exactly details on that because that's not my point here. But the lobby money does have an impact at the Capitol. I can tell you that for a fact. They apply intense pressure, and some of the candidates who receive it, I don't know if they're aware of what some of these organizations are going to push once they get at the Capitol. And I've seen that
That's why
happen.
in my question, I said the three of you may not be directly impacted by these PACs. I just need to understand who the hell they are, who's contributing to them, and how I find out who's really supporting a negative mailer that goes out, a positive mailer that goes out, or an individual mailer that goes out. I just want to know who's really.
Look above the
paying.
address in the paid by,
Yeah,
okay, and it'll tell you if it's an organization or if it's the candidate. It
yeah,
will
but
tell
it
you that.
says, okay, yeah.
And there's a
It
name down, you have to
doesn't say
research
a
to
PAC.
figure it out.
It says an organization, but the organization is really a PAC.
That's right.
It's purposely obscure.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Right?
Well, you haven't received a mailer from me. I'm spending some friends' money and my family's money because I don't want to get into that. I'm not, and that's why I'm not going to. I promised my wife I wouldn't spend a large volume of money on this race, and I'm holding to that. I am going to send out a mailer. of my Trump endorsement and you know, the Trump team, and that'll be about it from me. And, you know, we'll see if that matters or not. And Madison's right on name ID. That's why people keep sending you these things, and they don't really say a whole lot. But as far as PACs go, yes, and this is Suzanne touched on it, and if I can have a little latitude here, Terry, because it's a multifaceted question. There's a main group of consultants and that control most of the elections in Oklahoma, and they spend a large volume. They bring in a lot of dark money, and when you start seeing the negative ads, it's that entity that they're coming from almost every time. And so, and they back it. They have their people. It's kind of like, well, they have their people, and they'll write checks to them individually. And if you don't know who these people are, then it looks like, it's just another donor. But that's how PACs not only move money from the PAC, but they move it from their investors too. And when they give that money, they want something in return. It's not because Jim's a good old boy. It's pay to play. And it happens all the time at the Capitol, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, because it just makes me sick. So.
Doc, you're up.
I asked this question to the senatorial candidates too. The state government is inefficient. It's not based on merit. I have several relatives and friends who work in state government. If you do something real well, they don't treat you any better than the people who have messed everything up. It showed itself recently in Real ID. It also showed it in the backlog of unemployment during COVID. Is there any way to fix this, or is this just part of state government? Is it always going to be inefficient, run by people who have no ability but are appointed because they voted for or supported the governor? Or is there some way to fix that? It seems like it would have to be y'all.
Right, you're up.
Okay. Can you cover? That was kind of a lengthy question. Can you?
Efficiency in the executive branch of state government.
Okay. In the executive branch, I mean, I think that there's bills that are run to try to, you know, there's so much that is encompassed by the government. I mean, you know, a lot of it, for instance, a lot of people probably don't know this, but education eats up like 52% of the state budget. So, and every other entity fights for the other 48, basically. I mean, it's not the exact number, but it's about that. So, efficiencies, I mean, you're talking, you get into state school funding formula, you get into, I mean, this is a big question, because you're getting into the moving money, and how do you have to have something that addresses each different division. For instance, you got roads and bridges, right? I assume, so that is its own entity. You know, education is its own entity, and every superintendent, and therefore under that, is its own entity. So, I mean, in the macro, as the bigger picture, right, you can make them have, for instance, as a mayor, I wanted to make our departments have, spend 3% of each department's budget on infrastructure, because things tend to decay. Saying you'll have to target those things and regulate them individually in order to make them more efficient. I don't think that there's a one size fits all. If that's what I'm trying to get to, as far as efficiency goes, because every department's different.
Susanna, excuse me.
Okay, just a clarification, because I just came from the Capitol, so I kind of have an advantage on this. Over 32% of the state budget is spent on K through 12. Over 46% of the budget is spent on education overall, including universities and career tech. One of the things that I've thought about for this particular issue you're talking about is that we may need some minimum qualifications for some of the positions that are appointed. And I'm very disappointed with the appointment that was made to mental health. The lady may be a very nice person, but she didn't know how to run that organization. And we have enough problems in that agency already, and have had for years. And DHS also needs extensive help, and I don't think the person appointed to that position had the right qualifications for it either. You need to have the background, not just be a friend to somebody, okay? So that's something I want to look into, is minimum qualifications to help that process. Some people would say that having it confirmed by the Senate, a nomination and the Senate has to agree with it, helps the process. I don't think so. Because what I've seen repeatedly is that with the confirmation process, in the vast majority of times, the Senate will confirm the nominee, because if they don't, you get in a tit for tat with the governor, and the governor won't sign a bill or something because he's mad at you over that issue. So you end up with that complication. I'm not sure that really helps. Most of them are confirmed anyway. But minimum qualifications, this is an ongoing problem in state government and has been for years in government. I worked briefly in government when I was in my 20s, ages ago, and I only stayed a couple of years because I didn't like it. I'm very, very driven for performance and results, and always have been. And I had a manager who only showed up 3 days a week, and I was very annoyed. And he got away with it. It wasn't a problem. And he had personal issues, and I'm kind of like, I'm sorry, take a week off, and I'm sorry with your personal problem, but you're being paid to work a full week, and I expect you to be here. So, but accountability, and why do you have this problem in government versus private? Because if you're a private business and you screw it up, and there's a competitor down the street, your customers go to the competitor. But with a lot of these things at state government, they own that particular operation, and you don't have an option. And that's the problem. So you have to do the best you can to try to resolve that issue with more accountability.
Good answer.
Good answer. Is your question more to the executive side or the team below the executive side?
Well, executive means the whole branch, but it sounds like your answer is these are appointed by the governor, and you need to hold the governor's feet to the iron, because, I can give you all sorts of examples. The head of IT was no good. He was dishonest, and he bought this program from this company that was inferior, and then went to work for him and got paid for it. And then they hired him back.
Shocker.
And then they hired him back. He was head of IT again. State auditor's office, so maybe I should be asking this of the governor candidates. I don't know that the senators can, or the House can make the governor behave. But he's appointing a lot of people that are not qualified at all, have no education. Like, maybe standards would help, but I doubt it. You probably got to change the one appointment.
What I'd really like to see is the Senate gets to confirm them. And I understand, hey, the tit-tat of the governor, but grow up. Let's leave high school for the high school kids. Grow up. This is an adult world. Let's sit in a room and figure it out. Back to common sense thinking, and go back to just handshake. My word is the honesty. I mean, honesty is the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom. Thomas Jefferson said it. It's one of his most famous quotes. Let's go back to just being honest, quit playing the game, and shake your hand and say, hey, I disagree with you, but let's move forward. JD's,
You're up.
they are part of the confirmation of it, aren't you? Go ahead, sorry.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay.
My question is.
Oh, you had a question, sorry.
Yeah, do you support the current laws on the books for medical marijuana in the state? Or would you like to loosen them further or restrain them further?
Personally, I'd like to get rid of it all, personal. District 38 voted against it, so I can probably stand pretty strong and say, we need to get rid of it. But it's passed the state once already. We're not going to be able to get rid of it, unfortunately. I would like to restrict it more than anything else. The grow side is the most prominent problem. We've got a lot of foreign land ownership because of it. We've got a lot of abandoned greenhouses out there. I work for a private company with Helena Agri, selling seed chemical fertilizer. I drive county roads every day, and you'll just come over a hill and there'll be 5 acres of abandoned land that's got a tin fence around it because they left. We shut them down on the municipality part of closing the grow, but now we got to deal with the cleanup side. The state's passed a few laws and increased the bonds to help clean that up. But to answer your question simply, is I would love to restrict the grow more, because I do think the medical marijuana does help some people out there on some occasions there, but we got to restrict the grow side as much as we can.
Susanna?
I'm opposed to the state question. I believe that was 788 from several years back. And in fact, publicly contributed to a PAC to try to fight it. And of course, it didn't work. But I would say on medical marijuana, I'm opposed to the the situation we have right now. I'd like it reversed. And I think if we make allowances for a medical doctor to do a prescription for it in circumstances where it may be helpful, that's where we need to land. There are some issues that it can provide relief, and some of these are terminal cases, and it's relief for the patient. But I think the doctor, you need a real doctor's prescription, not some online deal where you don't even see a doctor. And in some cases, you have these people, I've told at the door that you turn 18 and you go get a medical marijuana card. And we don't need that. That's not helpful for our young people.
Brian?
I think, Jaden, can you restate what your direct question was so I make sure and answer that? And
Yeah,
don't get-
basically, with the medical marijuana in the state, would you want it to stay how it is, get more loose in the regulation, or stricter in regulation?
I think my opinion is it definitely needs to be stricter. You know, and I think they touched on it. You know, you can drive through K County, you can drive through you know, most of these counties, and you're going to see these abandoned groves. It's unfortunate that there wasn't something initially written in that they didn't have these ghost people allowing foreign entities to buy up land, and now they're gone, and we're going to have to deal with this. Because I was thinking, I saw there was an abandoned truck. My dad and I were driving around the other day. There's an abandoned truck, and there's all these greenhouses. They've got these metal fences around it, and it's just whoever it was, they're back in China, right? So then what do you do with that mortgage on that, the deed on that property? How do we reconstitute it to the United States? This is why I don't think foreign land ownership should ever be a thing in Oklahoma or the United States, in my opinion, but specifically for us. So I hope that answers your question.
Glenn?
One more. Somewhat dealing with education, but not quite. I retired after 30 years at NOC, and I've been out 15 years now, so I've had retirement checks for 15 years. The retirement fund was really a big cash cow that the legislature looked at this year. There was money there. Well, as a retired person, any increase is dependent upon the legislature, not the retirement system. The legislature each year, or every so often, passing a bump for us. The last 4 years, I have mentioned to our representatives and our senators, when I retired 15 years ago, my retirement check was noticeably higher than my Social Security check. Today, it's the opposite. Our retirement hasn't kept up with inflation. And that's because the legislature doesn't bump things up. Why can't we have a formula based on how much funds the retirement system has? It would automatically give us increases instead of every year, oh, let's give them $10. That's my question.
Well, I think that there should be something in there for a COLA, you know, the cost of living adjustment.
Right.
It sounds from what you're saying, again, it's not something I've deep dived into, but it sounds to me like you're just saying that the cost of living adjustment is not kept up with the inflation.
That's correct.
So it's something that it sounds like it needs to be looked at and addressed. It's probably not across the board.
Okay. I think you've got multiple things going on right there, and when you first started that, I thought you were talking about the proposal to take money, you know, from what they were going to allot to the teacher's pension to use it
I
for
think he was.
business.
I think he was.
I'm just
So-
suggesting there was a lot of money there, but it's not being used for retirement. It's being
Right,
used-
right. So if you go back just a few years, we had our pension systems 30+% funded. Now we're over 80% funded. and we have to make sure it stays that way. So if they're going to do a COLA, they have to make sure that they put enough money in there to make sure we maintain an actuarially sound position while we're doing the COLA. So that's a question of how you're allocating and budgeting funds. And maybe there's something else that we shouldn't be doing, and we should be doing the COLA instead. So I think this is part of the budgeting process and the budgeting consideration. And I wasn't on the budgeting committee, but I watched a lot of what was going on, and there were things that were spent on items that, well, they really weren't there for you and me and for the citizens. They were spent on other things. So change your priorities to try to make that possible.
This is something that's controlled by the legislature.
It's controlled by the legislature,
Not
but it's the
budget.
budgeting
That's right.
process,
Okay.
and they're allocating funds in the budgeting process for this.
We've only received 3 COLAs in the past decade, I believe, Glenn, is that
There
right?
have been too many.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. We have to pay for everything as a state. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no free handouts, and that's the hard truth of the matter, is we do have to pay for a COLA, a new road, a new school, anything else. We have to pay for it, and as a legislator, we have to balance the budget. It's the only thing you really have to do as a legislator, 100% at the Capitol. So, absolutely, do teachers deserve more? Heck yes. But they have increased, they've gotten the retirement fund back to where it's solvent again, number one. I would like to see, for sure, proposed every other year, every third year, where it's an almost automatic COLA for those separate retirement funds across there. But once we start saying a guaranteed thing, if we ever get into problems or struggles as a state, we have a down economy year, that's where the issue lies for me. Sorry, Glenn, yes, absolutely. I agree. We deserve more COLAs, cost of livings for our education and for our retirement funds there is the basis of it, but we've got to be able to balance that budget out.
More questions? Jay, I'm not surprised.
Where does money come from? If you want to give COLAs, where does the money come from? On a macroeconomic level, if you look at it, one of the biggest problems we've got in this country is there's too much money in people's hands, believe it or not. And, it's because of things where automatic pay increases, and what does that translate to? Automatic price increases
Inflation.
into what you're getting. So that's hard for me to understand. But as a legislator, where would you say the money comes from to do that?
Taxpayers. I mean, that's where the money has to come from, is the taxpayer side. Or we adjust the state budget. I mean, we adjust the bloat, we adjust the overspend for the ridiculous things that we have at the Capitol. We don't always have to spend on everything consistently there. But you've got to balance your budget. I mean, it is a taxpayer-funded budget, 100%. I guess, was that your question?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is we have to pay more. In some way, shape, or form, in order to give a COLA to school employees for their pensions or bridge and road people, where's it going to come from? It's coming from the taxpayer. The only way you can stop it is to say, no, we're not going to do it. And you've got to have the backbone to stick with it. So.
Susanna, your comments?
Yeah, government has a spending problem, not a lack of tax problem. And if you look at the fraud and the waste, why would you need to increase taxes if you can't manage what you've got? Okay? So this is a question of managing your priorities in your budget to do the right thing with the taxpayer dollars, and also addressing the fraud and the waste. So if you have over $700 million over in DHS, that somebody spent part of it for paying off a Cadillac and kitchen and bath remodels, there need to be more penalties for that than what was applied. Getting fired isn't enough. If I did what some of these people did, I would have charges that were much greater than what they got. That's more accountability. And there are a lot of things in the state auditor's report on these issues. And another thing they did work on this last session was trying to ensure competitive bidding on contracts, because there were a lot of things that were being done no bid, And you know what happens when you start doing no bid? It ends up being somebody's buddy and somebody's, company that an official knows. And that's wrong. So, but I'm not saying you have to increase taxes. I think we've got a money management problem and that we have a waste problem in government. And I am told by people familiar with DHS that there are people in DHS who literally aren't doing anything. There's a management problem in some of these agencies.
I agree.
Brian?
Well, earlier I stated, is it biblical, is it constitutional, do we need it, can we afford it? And I think we've got a lot wrong when it comes down to do we need it? And, my first thing to that end would be, let's find out what we don't need in our government. What should be left up to the private sector. That opens up a lot of revenue.
Yeah, but as a citizen, you look at it, and it's not, this is my comment, it's not aimed at you or anybody individually, but from the local level, which is either state level legislators, all the way to the federal level of legislators, everybody says there's fraud and abuse in the system, but nobody's doing anything to cut it out. So, and I know I don't mean to put you on a spot, but locally, what would you do? I mean, how do you cut it out?
Elon Musk was going after that with a butcher knife.
Yeah, but another, he did, and his group of guys or gals that worked on it, they're gone and nothing more. And, the fraud and abuse just continues. And, it's frustrating as an individual.
Okay, Glenn, you're next.
Well, my question wasn't really about increasing funding from taxes, but the teachers' retirement funds, which is an investment, is doing real well lately. And so my priority is, instead of the legislature looking to use that as a cash cow for other sources, why don't we keep that in the teacher retirement system and give us our COLA?
Yeah. I wanted to be real clear that I wasn't proposing no taxes raised to be able to get the COLA. No, you're good. I understand that. But no, yes, we don't need to rob the fund to pay your COLA or rob the fund to pay the bridge fund. It's an teacher's retirement fund, leave it there and allow it to work for the teacher's retirement. If there's enough money, now, the state legislator does kick in, I think it's 200 million into that every year to keep it solvent and keep it going. Now, if we need to kick an extra 50 million or whatever to keep the cost of living going there for you, cost of adjustment living there, okay, so be it. But let's not overfund or underfund things there, be over 1 year's of budget there.
Suzanne?
Sorry, I keep flinging that at you. Get it down to you.
So we're back on the teacher retirement again?
I think he was just trying to make a point.
Just kind of the point with that?
I think he just said that the fund needs to remain a fund, not a source of revenue for the state.
That's good.
I mean, like Social Security?
Yeah, that's kind of a Ponzi scheme, right?
That's what it all is.
So, welcome to the government.
Yeah.
But
We're here to help.
the management in agencies, a lot of this is a reflection of the leadership that you put in place. And so what I would be watching for this year, we can try to do a lot of the legislature, but we don't make the nominees for the agency heads. That comes from the governor. And some of these issues, watch very carefully what the governors say about what they're willing to do in the agencies. Some of them, I've heard, you talk about DHS and they throw up their hands. It's kind of like, that's so broken, nobody can do anything with it. That's not what I want to hear.
Do you think the fund should stay a fund?
It should stay a fund.
Yeah,
Just a
that was his
retirement fund.
question.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill again.
Number 3, thank you. I did hear the name of Elon Musk a minute ago, and earlier than that I heard the name of Donald Trump. For Mr. Hobbs particularly, and for Ms. Callahan and Mr. Foley to rebuttal if they care. So how does Donald Trump happen to know you, and how did you get his endorsement? And what does that entail?
I didn't get Trump. I've got Mike Flynn, who was his national security advisor, and I got Roger Stone, who was his political consultant and political advisor, and some others who've been kind of interagency involved. I
Okay,
hope that provides clarity. I don't want to mislead anybody with that. I've gotten asked that at the door, and I have to clarify, because
Either of you have a response to that? No?
On the endorsement,
Well, in response to what he said about endorsement, yeah.
about endorsement, I wasn't looking for an endorsement. In fact, I run into a number of people that just want me to run as myself. They don't like me to tie myself to somebody else. So they want to know what I think.
Any other questions? Hands raised?
I won't raise it.
Just blurt it out.
Well, we've gone an hour and 38 minutes, so I think we covered a lot of ground. I appreciate everybody coming. This is how you get educated on who you want to vote for on election day. And it's, every vote you cast affects your life. And the lower the level of government you're voting on, the more effect it has on your life. And this is, the only thing lower than this is county and city. And so it's amazed me since I've gotten involved in politics how much goes on down there at the Capitol and how little most people pay attention to it. It's just the way it is. One more last chance for a question. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to all three candidates. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Terry.